It's a belt. It's shiny. It's awesome. It's cool. It's a piece of hardware that I can give for my baby boy.
Porque eu não comi nada antes.
You know,
Não comi nada. Eu vim
absolutely.
treinar.
Hold on, I'm talking, brother.
Então, vai te fuder, vou tomar no teu cu,
So
meu.
what I'm trying to say,
Vem treinar.
hold on, I'm talking, brother.
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 Masvidal Usman 2. We set it up earlier. Took it on 6 days' notice. They both took it on 6 days' notice, by the way. Because Usman, by the way, he was supposed to fight Burns, and he left Vegas to go home once that fight was cancelled. He was at the airport in Dallas, and then he got the call when he landed, you got to come back. And he missed the flight going out to Abu Dhabi, so he had to put him on another flight to then get him out there.
Mm.
And apparently he'd started eating as if it wasn't... So he had a lot of weight to cut as well. So, again, I'm not fully on board with the Masvidal 6 days notice thing, unless you're going to say Usman 6 days notice. I don't know if you buy into that personally.
I think it's interesting that that's not discussed. That Masvidal really controls the narrative going into the fight.
Yeah.
But I mean, Kamaru, it's really there's no criticisms you can level against him, right? There's
as a fighter, or as a person.
As a fighter. As a fighter.
Yeah.
And his last showing against Burns.
Unbelievable.
Oh, it was ferocious.
Yeah.
And, you know, his kind of crying call out for respect on his name has been heard, I think. At least I already really rated him very highly, but he just dismantled Burns, pieced him up with that jab, finished him, never looked like a fight.
Well, he recovered as well. And he recovered really... Because Burns did tag him, and he did hurt him.
Yeah.
And then Burns just slipped, ended up on his back, and Usman did the smart thing of just kicking his legs. I'm going to kick your legs, I'm going to keep you on the ground, I'm going to make sure the ref doesn't stand you up. And I'm not going into that guard. And I'm just going to hit you from here, and I hit him to the body. And I think once he fully sort of got his senses back, he was just like, right, I can get back going into this.
Oh, he came on really, really strong. Just turned up the pressure.
Yeah. Whereas with Masvidal, we don't really have much on Masvidal for the last year and a bit. Like, really, if we think about it, in the last 3 years, we got the Darren Till fight, you got the Nate Diaz fight,
jaw-dropping knockout,
and the jaw-dropping knockout of Askren.
But Till,
Till was
silenced that crowd.
I remember watching. By the way, do you remember watching that? Did you watch that fight live? I think you did, didn't you?
Was it on UK time?
It was on UK time. I remember us talking about it because Gunnar Nelson was fighting, and you were in Iceland, and you still are. I remember watching that fight. And I remember Masvidal walking out, and in a weird way, I felt bad for him because I was just like, "There's no way he's going to beat Till." And it's just like he hasn't fought in a while. His last fight before that, he got pieced up by Wonder Boy, and I was just like, I don't know. And he felt like a journeyman. He felt like a guy who was never going to reach it. I think he was ranked 12th. And then it's not that he just knocked Till out. He outclassed him.
Yeah, well, eventually. I mean, Till did show us some flashes early on.
Yeah, for sure.
He looked like the bigger man, and he was putting it on Masvidal against the fence.
In the first round. And then Masvidal just timed that left hand beautifully. Like, he set it up of just like, put it out there, see what the reaction is, okay. And then he literally had a 3-step run up into that knockout, which he then timed earlier by going like, I'll give it a 2-step. Okay, I landed, but it hasn't knocked him out. Right, I'll give it a 3-step this time. Clean knocks him out, gives Leon Edwards the 3-piece and a soda backstage, and becomes a superstar.
Yeah, what a turnaround.
I mean,
unbelievable.
Have we ever seen a turnaround like that?
No, not to the same degree. Not from being like, rank 12, kind of fading out journeyman to biggest drawer in the sport. And now, like, overexposed,
Yeah, he that year, he definitely became a bit overexposed.
I guess, like, after the Diaz fight, where I thought he really actually showed that he deserved that exposure.
Yeah,
He
sure,
just
definitely.
took Diaz apart completely.
Yeah.
And he was faster and had a lot more diversity in his striking, and he was so accurate. It was just
And he was
taking
vicious. He was vicious in
everything.
that fight.
It looked so painful. Everything he was throwing.
Yeah.
And yet he didn't, for some reason, he didn't really catch much credit for that showing.
It's because of how it ended, and also, I love the Diaz brothers. I love Nate Diaz and all this, but they do have a lot of defenders who will create the narrative of Masvidal has beaten him up for 15 minutes. It's not even close, and then Masvidal goes back to his corner and takes a deep breath, and they were like, "Oh, he's tired. Oh, he's tired. Nate Diaz is going to come back now, and he's tired. Diaz has got the gas tank," ignoring the fact that Masvidal just beaten up his body for 15 minutes, and they think like, what, that doesn't mean anything? Like, he'd beaten him up, and the narrative just became that. And I know that there was talk of like they should do a rematch. There's no need for a rematch with that fight. Like, it's not a thing. I don't think. Like, it's just not. It's not needed.
Well, if Diaz goes out and really impresses us against Leon Edwards, let's talk again. Let's see a bit more activity from Diaz.
Yeah, but Diaz is a guy who, like, even when he loses, it doesn't really matter. But again, we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. But yeah, going back to Masvidal, I know what you mean. Like, he just seemed to like not be a thing for a while. He had his YouTube series thing, breaking down his sort of like year where he became a big sort of celebrity and whatever else. On the cover of the UFC game, he created this brand of street Jesus, baptizing people, 3-piece and a soda. He just became a brand by accident. Fights Usman. Do you remember watching that fight, the first one? How you felt leading into it?
I felt that Masvidal's outs were very few.
Yes. He had one round, I felt like.
Yeah.
And he fought like that.
Should we talk about the fight itself, or
the first fight?
The first fight?
Yeah, go on.
Well, because, I mean, you will shock me if you've picked Jorge Masvidal for this fight.
Yeah.
You will shock me. So I'm going to assume that you've gone for Kamaru. So I thought we might look at, like, how do you sell Masvidal here?
Yeah.
What are his chances? Early on in that fight, he was taken down and he was able to get back up. All right, he was able to land punishing strikes on Usman.
Yeah.
Anything else? I mean,
he didn't get taken down. That was the big thing for me. Like, he didn't get
held down.
He didn't get held down. But the thing is, though, is that
Early.
Usman doesn't really do his work there, though. Like, he's more of a up against the cage. Clint. Listen, I know that people go like, "Oh, he was just kicking." That hurts. I'm not having that as anything else than that hurts. And the shoulder thing is not going to feel great either. And this is a guy who, he's had that sort of folk style wrestling sort of ingrained into him from a young age. He's just built for this. He's built for that type of fight. And I know, but I mean, that was the thing that kind of really impressed me about that fight, was Masvidal just didn't react to any of that foot stuff.
Mm-hmm. And he made it the distance.
Yeah, made it the distance. There was a point that I found quite interesting after that fight. It was an interview with Usman. I think it was before the Burns fight, where they were talking about the Masvidal fight, and he said, like, I had him against the fence, but I wasn't holding him. He could have pushed me off.
Right.
But he chose not to. Like, and when you look back at it, the pressure that he's putting on him isn't ridiculous. I just think Masvidal either was that tired that he couldn't risk using that much energy to get him off, or he was happy in the 4th and 5th rounds just to stay there and go like, I've got my excuse ready. Which I don't know if he would do that, to be honest. I don't know how you feel.
Well, let me pose you this question. We've got now Usman defending against Burns.
Yeah.
And we've got, well, Usman versus Colby, hell of a fight.
Yeah.
Let's just compare Burns and Masvidal and their fights against Usman. Whose stock comes out higher after those? I mean, there are still question marks there with Masvidal. There's not much, but there's enough of an angle to say.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I do. I think that.
You don't think Burns gave a good account of himself in that Usman fight?
No, I mean, yeah, well.
All right, I'm not saying that it's like it's not like the Masvidal one where there's a mystery surrounding it. Obviously, I think Usman was the better fighter in general and on the night. But to me, there was still a point where Burns can hurt this guy. He can clearly hurt him. It's whether he can maintain the discipline to keep that sort of pace up. But I see what you're saying. There is a mystery with Masvidal of like if he had a proper training camp, and he's basically had a year.
He did show that he can create a bit of space, and we know the kind of variety in his striking that he's got at his disposal. You know, the ways that he can open Usman up with just a little bit of space and just that bit more energy, a bit more knowledge that he's got it in the tank, you know, to explode away. Whereas I felt like in the Burns fight, you know, Usman just came on like thick and fast, and it wasn't getting better for Burns. It was just getting. It was a beatdown in the end. I mean, it was a beatdown with Burns in tears, bleeding, leaking. From his face.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's
not the end of the Masvidal fight.
No, that's a good point. I think it's because Masvidal has that striking, which I mean, Woodley has said for the longest time that Masvidal's got the best boxing in the UFC, and I'd be kind of inclined to agree. I think he is a great striker. It's always just been the case with him of just like putting people away. Like do you remember the Al Iaquinta fight? He lost it by split decision.
This is journeyman Masvidal.
Well, this is pre-Reebok UFC, so whatever. Right. But this is the fight where Iaquinta wins by split decision, and the crowd start booing, and Iaquinta's going like, "What are you doing, booing me? Like, don't boo me."
I do remember that.
Yeah. So Masvidal for the longest time was a guy who just couldn't put people away. And he did do that with Askren, he did do that with Till, and to be honest, he did do that with Diaz. I question whether Usman will allow Masvidal to get into a position to beat him. Really. I mean, shall I give you my
let's unveil them. I mean,
Usman. Decision. Yes. Okay. Good.
I mean, it's the most safe pick in UFC, almost.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me to look at this fight and think. Like, okay, let me break this down. How I approach these sometimes. I look at every potential outcome, and then I scratch off the ones that are not going to happen. So Masvidal's not going to sub him. He's not winning by submission. That's whatever. And I think like, okay, can Masvidal win by decision? And then I try to visualize the fight.
Yep.
He needs to win 3 rounds over Usman. In any way, do you see him winning 3 rounds against Kamaru Usman?
Highly improbable.
So
unless you got a severely injured Usman.
Yes, and then you're looking at how is he going to knock him out then? Has to do it early.
Oh, I don't know. I think I was listening to Jack Slack. I know we both listened to him a bit.
Yes, yeah.
And he liked the game plan for Masvidal to actually be trying to take Usman deep, to like hold him off him, wear him down.
Really?
So that he would then have those spaces in the later rounds to really make it count with his striking. That's how Slack.
That's quite an interesting approach, and I know that Masvidal, he is a great game planner. Like, he really, like, those 3 fights in, what was it, 2019?
You mean like flying knee on Askren in the
last
few seconds?
Well, no, they prepped it.
I know.
They prepped it. It's incredible. Like, people look at that and they go like, oh my God. Like, I remember when that happened, Like, you know, obviously the videos going around and people going like, oh, it's just like fucking two bouncers having a scrap. And it's just like, it fucking isn't, let me tell you. Like, he's game planned that to perfection.
Yeah.
So, what you're thinking is, what is going to be the game plan? That's quite interesting that he would maybe take it deep. I guess work the knees, try and take kicks to the knees and whatnot. Maybe doing like sort of those John Jones style oblique kicks would be the way to go.
Well, Usman's knees, right?
Yes.
We know there's a weakness there.
Yeah,
So,
which has never been exploited.
no.
Ah.
He hasn't. I mean, and Usman hasn't need to rely on that explosion. That's part of why he's not kind of hunting people around the ring.
Yeah.
He prefers to wear on them.
Do you know Usman can't run?
Yeah, I heard he only uses the elliptical,
Which is insane.
the cross trainer.
Yeah, because his knees are that fucked. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I could be talked around to. I mean, I'm not going to change my pick at this point. That's against the rules.
Shame. I wouldn't mind. Wouldn't mind you having Masvidal.
Oh yeah, of course.
A bit worried about some of my older picks.
Yeah, it's yeah, I'm still going to stick with Usman by decision.
A little bit more from Masvidal. His, of course, he's all about narrative now. And you know what he had to say about Usman from their first fight?
What?
Well, two things. He said that Usman knows Usman's highest level, and Usman knows his lowest level. And that actually first fight that gives him confidence because he knows that Usman can't hit hard.
Oh, I saw that. He hasn't been gifted the ability to hurt a man with his hands.
That's right. Imagine living life like that.
Which is great trash talk, by the way. Like,
yeah.
Do you know what? That's what I quite like about Masvidal as a fighter is his ability to trash talk because it just doesn't. It feels authentic. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like like Chael Sonnen always felt like a character.
Yep.
Conor McGregor feels like a character.
Now.
Well, now, yeah, I guess so. I guess McGregor always was that pro wrestling thing of your personality turned up to 11. Mm-hmm. Whereas Masvidal just feels like a guy who you would just encounter on the street, basically.
Or felt, you know. This is what we're talking about with exposure. Now it's getting a bit tired, which is a shame because he has got that raw wit.
Yeah. So I would.
Can you imagine if Masvidal wins this fight, Joe? Can you imagine?
I mean, I know Dana has said Colby Covington is next. Colby Covington is not fucking next if Masvidal wins this fight.
I would love that fight. Imagine the build up for that. They've got all that history.
Yeah, it's a great story, but I personally I think it's a bit bollocks actually him saying Covington's next. Because if Leon Edwards beats Nate Diaz,
which he will.
Which, fucking hell, you've already given away. We'll save our breakdown for that, but yeah, okay, fine. I think Edwards will win that fight. But, like, how can you not do Edwards in a title fight? Like, I'm sorry, I'm not having Covington as a title contender. I'm not having it. He beat Woodley, who's washed.
Yeah.
Woodley.
I mean, that fight against Usman, this comes up quite a lot when we're talking about it, but I thought that was an amazing fight.
Yeah, it's a great fight.
And I thought Covington could have been on his way to a victory there, apart from what happened to his jaw.
I had that one. I think we've talked about this before, but yeah. We talked about the scoring of that. But I'll just let the listener know this that on the scorecards going in
single.
Yeah, single listener. That the
Kirsten.
The judges for that fight had it going into the fifth. One had it 3-1 Usman, one had it 3-1 Covington, and one had it 2-2. So it was quite literally split down the middle.
I want to see it again.
Yeah, I do want to see it again. I feel like Dana's saying that because he feels like Usman's going to win that fight. Although Usman has said he's willing to walk away after this fight.
Yeah, that's the worry. That's the worry. Because I don't want to see Usman go. I feel like he's really at the top of the game.
He's cooking now, isn't he?
He's a draw. I want to watch him. I want to watch him after the Burns fight. I want to watch him after the Covington fight. Woodley, what are you going to do with Woodley? If he won't, obviously if he comes out and leaves himself exposed like Luque did.
Yeah.
Like he did against Luque.
Yeah, and also I guess who would you have Usman fight next? Covington, Edwards, Wonderboy, Chiesa.
What Wonder Boy? Well, he's already beaten Chiesa. I want Chiesa to do a little bit more before he's in that.
Hold on, who's beaten Chiesa?
Usman, no?
No,
No, Masvidal has beaten Usman.
Masvidal beaten, but that was
Masvidal has beaten. No, I need some editing on that bit. Jesus.
no editing. So we're gonna have.
Masvidal.
I feel like Chiesa. Personally, I would have made the Chiesa Covington fight and then go from there. But...
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah.